Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question was suggested by a viewer, thanks to Brandon Patton for this one. Nick controls a grizzly bears that's enchanted by Eldrazi Conscription. Amy uses Oko's +1 ability targeting that grizzly bears. What are its characteristics now? Alright, so first of all, it should be pretty uncontroversial to say that the grizzly bears is going to be a green elk. Nothing in the Eldrazi Conscription is going to say anything about that. However, the interesting parts of this question are going to be whether it has Trample and Annihilator and what its final power and toughness will be, so let's focus on those. If you've been following the channel for a while, you probably already know that continuous effects are applied in layers. Continuous effects that do one type of thing are always applied before continuous effects that do other types of things. Depending on what types of things your continuous effects are doing, that's going to decide what the order should be. So we know that adding and removing abilities is going to be happening in layer 6, and power and toughness changing is going to happen in layer 7. Within each layer, usually you use timestamps, in other words, what effect started first, in order to determine the final results. We're going to use these principles and apply them to that question and figure out what the answer is going to be. So let's start in layer 6. We have two different continuous effects to worry about. We have Oko that wants to remove all abilities from the grizzly bears, and we have Eldrazi Conscription that wants to give it Annihilator and Trample. So, like we said before, we're going to use timestamps to decide which order these apply. If the grizzly bears got turned into an elk first and then enchanted by Eldrazi Conscription, what would happen is the Oko ability would take all of the abilities away from grizzly bears first, and after that the Eldrazi Conscription would put Trample and Annihilator onto it. However, as stated in the original problem statement, that's the opposite of what we did. Given that the Eldrazi Conscription entered the battlefield before Oko's ability resolved, that means that we're going to give grizzly bears Annihilator and Trample first, and after that, the Oko, which has a later timestamp, is going to take those abilities away. Now, let's take a look at what's going to happen with the power and toughness of the grizzly bears, and this one is going to be even easier. As you can see here, the sublayers in layer 7 that determine the power and toughness of an object are going to have base power and toughness setting in a different sublayer from power and toughness buffs and debuffs. What this means for this question here is that because the base power and toughness setting ability of Oko applies in an earlier sublayer than the power and toughness plussing from Eldrazi Conscription, that means that the grizzly bear is always going to be a 13/13 no matter what order these effects started. The sublayers mean that the +10/+10 is always going to happen after the base power and toughness of the grizzly bears is set to 3/3. And that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again tomorrow for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.